Welcome to Rising Goddess Radio. I'm your hostess, Michelle Torrance. I created Rising Goddess Radio to be a space where we dive deep into our spiritual, emotional, and physical bodies. We're getting real and connecting with ourselves in the most intimate ways. We'll be talking all things sacred sexual, relationship building, and womb healing. We'll be learning how to connect with our bodies through learning the language it speaks, how to use our sexual and sensual energies to create, manifest, and heal our lives. This show is about healing the chaotic feminine and toxic masculine within to create a world that responds to the divine and healthy energy you chose to tune in, tap in, and turn on. We will learn from amazing humans who take time and share their wisdom and sacred healing magic, rising humans who are here in this world to be healers, teachers, guides, priestesses, warriors, and shamans. All divine sisters and brothers in rising. We'll get witchy, sassy, sexy, and saucy. We're going to talk all things that align us with our true nature and authentic selves and create a community that expands with the ascension and growth of each of us. So grab some green juice, light some cannabis, get your blankets, or sit by the pool because we are about to rise up another level together. Catch you on the inside, dolls. Hello, my beautiful rising humans, and welcome to this episode of Rising Goddess Radio. It's been a while since I've done an episode. I've said that over this last few months because things have just been cray, and I'll get into that. But I'm excited. I have so many different episodes that I want to record for you guys. I've got like 9 or 10, and I have some guests coming on as well. And so I definitely want to finish this year off with some amazing episodes, some connected work, and Rising Goddess is kind of shifting again. As we grow, as we expand, as we rise ourselves, then everything in our life rises and ascends and shifts and transmutes with us. So of course it makes sense that as I expand and rise, then Rising Goddess does. I mean, Rising Goddess is the frequency of Goddess within us, each and every one of us. And the Rising Goddess is within all of us. We are all, each individually, men, women, all fluid rising. And so it just, that's the whole purpose of this. I guess this episode is really helping me with that too, because, things are shifting. So let's get into some story time. I've got my cannabis, grab your cannabis, there's going to be words. So if you're around kids, who you just feel like would not, understand, or just would be too much. I mean, cause this is real talk here. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to be sharing some shit from the last year or so and just connect with y'all as the rising goddess that I am, as the rising goddess within you. So let me hit this. So here we are in September. I'm not sure if you remember last September, I did an episode. I was let go from my mortgage job that I had worked for 4 years at. Funny enough, they let me go on my day off, and it was just kind of hilarious. The day before they let me go, I had received an email that was like, thank you so much for your 4 years of service. And, it was like my 4-year month anniversary. And so I got that email on a Tuesday, and Wednesday I was off, and my boss called me, and she was like, or she messaged me on Facebook, and she was like, hey, you need to fucking call me. Like, we got some shit. And I was like, as soon as I heard that, I knew, I was like around 6 of layoffs, 5 or 6. The company had been laying people off for about 1.5 years. So that's just me moving my notebook around if you hear this shuffling. So anyways, I was let go. And, at that time, I decided that I was going to dive right into the Rising Goddess and put all of my effort and focus and everything into Rising Goddess. And I did. And, over this last year, the growth and expansion, awareness, awakening, the alignment, the magic, the depth, the width of the ascension that it has been happening in my life and in the life of me and my husband and our family. And the words are starting to escape me. I'm moving into my high priestess phase. I'm on day 18 of my cycle. So if you're tracking, I have like roughly a 26-day cycle. So my weeks are, instead of like 7 to 8 days each season, I'm roughly 5 to 6 days each season. So I'm moving into my high priestess phase. And if you've been following me for a while, you realize and understand that I don't do a whole lot of speaking during my high priestess phase because words just kind of get all jumbled up. My channeling is extremely fast. And the human brain that I am blessed and grateful to have sometimes gets super stopped up. And so I tend to write more during this time. So as we go through this episode, if that starts to happen, that's just me. You guys, listen, this is what we do here at the Rising Goddess. This podcast is like chilling around the big fireplace up at Mount Charleston. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? Super like cozy, comfortable, all of that. So anywho, I digress. I usually do. So a year ago I was let go, right? And I was laid off on my day off. And I decided to jump right in and really dive into the Rising Goddess. And as I've shifted, I've become more, I've done so much more studying. I've deepened my connection with my spirit guides. I have really harnessed and tuned in the other dimensional frequencies that come through and show me things and tell me things and have me feel them. All of my clairs that come through. And the work that I have settled into has been it's extremely deep, wounded healing. My whole life, it's funny, Sean and I were talking about this the other day. My whole life, I realized that my whole life I have always attracted women who have been sexually abused or raped or assaulted or molested or their power being forced to be given up has always happened ever since. Even when I was a little girl, I remember this little girl behind me on the street behind me, and I'm not going to say names or anything like that, but I remember that this was in like first or second grade, that she was just very quiet. She was very reserved. She was very shy. She was also quite bratty at the same time. And it was like this weird, there's just this weird frequency. And, one day we ended up walking home from school from the bus stop. And even though she was on the street behind me, I decided to walk around the block because I didn't want to go home yet myself. That's because I would always run home and lay in the front yard looking for Falcor to come take me away. So I would try and delay any time coming home. So I walked around the block with her for the first time, and I'm just having these flashes right now as I'm sharing this story with you. But like, I remember her saying that she has all these things and like nobody ever wants to play with her. And, her house is always weird because her dad's always angry. And, And so I was like, yeah. So I was like, well, all right, I'll come over and play sometime, And I remember going into her room. She had like the whole upstairs room. It was like this super huge master bedroom suite, and her parents had the ones downstairs below. And she had like all of like the new shit, right? Like the Nintendo, and she had like, I remember playing, what was it, Cubert? Like that, was that Cubert? That's what I remember playing, right? But she had like all this stuff, but the energy in her home was so sad and so scary. And I remember her dad almost hit her mom right in front of me, and I ended up leaving. But she would tell me things like little words and keywords about how, like, if she was a bad girl, what her dad would, say to her, and then what her punishment would be. And then if she was a good girl, she could get this other type of love. And I didn't really fully understand or comprehend back then. And as I was realizing this, as now in my life, talking with Sean the other day in the garage, she wasn't the only one. Like, my best friend down the street, experiences that her brother was messing with her, and I felt that energy of the house too. And so throughout my whole life, I think of all the different friends that have come into my frequency, and how almost all of them have had sexual assault experiences. And so realizing this, especially as the rising goddess, we're big on moon cycles, magic, but sexual alchemy, right? Sexual healing, orgasmic healing is the basis of what this is. It's the sexual shame transmutation. It's the healing of the trauma at a cellular structure, at the energetic frequency. And so I realized that is the work that I'm here to do and help women and men. A lot of people may not realize, but I get messages from men who are dealing with sexual shame, whether it's regarding their sexuality, and, they're afraid to talk with their partner and talk about their desire to explore either their bisexual fantasy ideas and thoughts and desires, or whatever it is, whether it's penis shame, that they feel like they're unworthy based off of the size of their penis. So I realize that people are attracted to me who have a lot of sexual shame, whether that's through a traumatic experience or just through the life experience and being taught growing up. And that work takes time to heal. I mean, I offer 3-week sessions and, 4-week sessions through Voxer Talks, but it's going to take longer than a month to heal that work. It takes time. It takes patience. It takes compassion. It's like every single day you're choosing to focus on how you want to feel and taking conscious action steps towards that, instead of reaching for your fucking pipe, right? Instead of doing that fucking line, or fucking, shooting that fucking up, right? Or taking that fucking drink, right? And so, like, this working through traumatic sexual trauma takes time. I mean, I had one client that we worked together for a year, and she was able to really start to move forward in expansion into a desire that she didn't even realize she had, but it just came through the healing of her sexual trauma in the transmutation. And so, the time that I worked, so over this last year, getting the clarity on that and me coming through and over this last year, I've healed my own sexual trauma experiences that I blacked out in my own self. My first sexual experience, a time I realized I woke up and I was in the middle of having sex and I don't even remember any of it. Like, it was like everything was so fucking hazy and crazy. And then so I'm this last year myself, I have been doing much wider and deeper healing. And as I've been doing that, it's been really allowing those who have been cycling through toxic behaviors, addictive behaviors, codependent behaviors because of this trauma and this relationship with their body, because ultimately it comes down to that. It's the relationship with your body, right? And so the work I do is scary for people too sometimes. These are scary topics for a lot of people based off of raising or just the conditioned programming and indoctrination that they have been in. I help people heal from religious indoctrination and reconnect with their own spiritual alignment. So I get it. I get the work that I do takes time, and it can be scary. And so over this last year, financially, we're a family of 5. And, Sean he's the one that runs the house. He's been the one that is the foundation, right? He is the emperor, if you are familiar with tarot, right? So he's always been that way. He's been a stay-at-home father. He's been the one to take care of the house, the one to take care of all of us. Like, he is the one that does that. He also is growing some amazing cannabis because it helps us as a family when I and he are able to naturally balance out hormonal aspects, energetic frequencies, and a lot of the natural healing aspects that cannabis provides for us, right? You've all heard me, if you've listened to this show for a while, I have what society would call ADD, and I've always had it. I call it high energy because my energy has always been very high frequency. I've always been the one to be just all over the place, and I've never been able or taught how to channel that high energy into constructive, creative frequencies and projects. And so as I've been doing my healing over this last almost decade, I've learned how to channel this high energy, and sometimes I can feel my human self go through habitual behaviors where I start to feel like my energy is kind of going chaotic, right? Understand too that when we're super in our feminine, we can feel chaotic. We can feel like we can't focus. Our energy is just all over the place, because for us to have a channeled, focused feminine energy, we need to have our masculine energy grounded to support. So, so I myself have really learned how to channel that. And so, this last year, we've been working through a lot of financial ups and downs. We've had family help us. I mean, I've done a couple of episodes. I remember I did one when the tower falls. And that was really kind of the beginning of massive ascension and transformation within myself, within Sean, and within us as a couple and as a family, just the world and the life that we're living. And all of those put together, financially, we weren't in this current society able to maintain. Now, I had started putting in resumes to jobs, 18 years in the mortgage industry. So I started putting in applications August. So, like 7 months ago. And normally in my life, throughout my whole life, before in my past paradigm, I mean, I was able to get a job within like a week. But for like 5 months, it was tumbleweeds blown across the fucking floor. Like it was like fucking dead. And I don't know if you've ever felt that feeling, right? Like you used to be able to just get a job within a week, and then all of a sudden it was like months and months and months, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? Now, granted, I'm still working my business. I still am. I mean, the Rising Goddess is my purpose-driven business, and just, I don't even have words for it right now, but I'll have more later, I suppose. But, it was quiet, and, we were hanging on. I do my readings every morning. That is my spiritual journaling, my alignment, my connections. Some people get up early in the morning and read the Bible. Some people get up early in the morning and meditate and do yoga. Some people get up early in the morning and just sit and be at the sun or walk or whatever. And I do my tarot readings, and this is my connection with spirit, with my guides, with my higher self. And each reading was continuously guiding us every single day. And so over this last year, I've really learned how to lean in more than I've ever learned how to lean in before, and surrender and let go more than I've ever learned how to surrender and let go before. Because ultimately I've realized in a grounded, conscious frequency that the only thing I have control over, which we hear this all the time, but sometimes you hear it and it's like, oh fuck, now it makes sense. The only thing I have control over is my emotional awareness and expression and creative expression of that emotional awareness, right? The only thing I have control over is my emotional awareness and the creation. Let me figure that. Hold on. Stop. Here we go. The only thing that we can control is our emotional awareness and the creative expression of that emotional awareness. Make that a motherfucking meme. That's what I'm going to do. And so for months, it was nothing. And then out of nowhere, things started progressing, and like there was movement. We had worked through multiple different blocks. I myself had chosen specific boundaries for myself, and have given those boundaries to people in my life who I would have not given boundaries to before. And by standing firm in those boundaries and raising my standards for the life experience I want to live, then the people started to remove themselves from my life. I started to ascend, open up, and create space and more flow and movement. And then I received the opportunity that I accepted and am currently at now, which has been really like the best situation that I've been asking for. And I'm super excited and grateful and thankful and all of these wonderful things, right? So here we are, right? Now we're at this place where we're no longer in the survival mode aspect, right? We've been in survival mode 2222. I just looked up at my recording software. I see you guys. I see you, universe. Fucking confirming shit. So here we are where we're in a space and in a frequency higher. We've probably ascended and I'd say, like, I feel like it's like 6 or 7 different frequency fields, right? And when you hear me talk about that, right, the frequency fields that we're on, all of us are on different frequency fields, and some of us are in the same field. We're just in our own dimensional like world or universe, right? So we can feel each other in the same field. That's how we attract people into our life when we're at that frequency, right? And so where we were at was a frequency that was still filled with blocks and limitations and sexual shame. And now we've gone through massive amounts of healing, multiple different levels, and we have stepped up and risen, have gone through so many different ascension symptoms, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all of the things, right? And now we're in this frequency field where we are creating magic through aligned and surrendered consciousness, yeah. And things feel good. And as I was doing my reading this morning, 24 minutes into this recording on basically the topic, right? But I had to give you all the backstory, right? So, doing my reading this morning, and I asked, what action steps can I take today to help my part in manifesting my intentions, right? And then and that was the 10 of Pentacles. And then I asked, is there anything that we should be aware of that might try and sabotage us? And the 6 of Swords pulled up, and then I asked for clarity, and the 10 of Pentacles for my other deck, because when I asked for clarity, I reached for my other deck. And the 10 of Pentacles from the other deck came up, which clearly aligns with me, right? And so I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, 10 of Pentacles is part of something to be aware of for sabotaging. And the 6 of Swords, which is the 6 of Swords, you're traveling away. You're moving towards smoother, more aligned, calmer water. You have more mental shift. You're living a mental experience, like a different paradigm. And I was like, well, how can this be a sabotage? And it hit me. Creating chaos when things are going well. And so I want to ask you, how many of you out there, when you guys have gone through the ringer, right? The gauntlet, right? You've gone through, what's that fucking show, that whole obstacle fucking course where it's like, it has these big ass styrofoam like fists that like punch you off the fucking thing, right? And you gotta like grow those big ass balls and shit. Giggity. So, right, you've gone through this whole fucking thing, and here you are now. You finally have crossed the bridge. You've been able to help, like, you were able to build a bridge, right? Make $1 out of 15 cents, right? And now you're over the other side, and you're camping out now, and now you see, okay, look, we've made it over here. This is where the desires are. We're in this frequency. Our standards have risen. Our boundaries are set. Our foundation is solid. We're feeling good. We're feeling alive. We're feeling purpose-driven. We feel the desire to really help humanity feel this feeling, right? However way we can, right? We really step into the benefactor aspect of it, right? The 6 of Pentacles, benefactor or beggar, right? And so really stepping into the benefactor aspect. And so things are feeling good, right? And then all of a sudden, you create some sort of chaos in your life. Because for people who have lived in survival mode their entire life, their comfort zone is survival mode, and they have put their worthiness based off of the action and the actual step of overcoming. So we create this chaos to continue the cycle of comfort of overcoming, because that's our addiction. How many, I just looked at 707, how many of you have done that? Right? We do that in our life. When we are in this phase, right? So now that we're aware, right? So survival mode, right? I've been in survival mode my entire life. Right? There's past episodes that we talk about, little run through, I've been addicted to food since the age of 5, hiding it. My ADD, my attention stuff, that all of that has been running through. I started getting addicted to drugs. I've been addicted to codependency. You can be addicted to anything. You can be addicted to fucking kale. We've talked about this before too. You can be addicted to any vice as long as you are utilizing that vice to bypass the actual core of what it is that you are afraid to look at, right? So, survival mode was what I was in. I've been homeless. I've had to travel, it's just all of that. That was my comfort zone because I could hustle like a motherfucker, right? Raised on Vegas in survival mode, hustling like a motherfucker. That's what I did. And every time I would, quote unquote, save the day, I would have a dopamine kick and a rush, right? Simon Sinek does dopamine, right? He snaps every time he says the word dopamine when he does his lectures, talking about that. And so I would have an addiction to the dopamine that would come out from the satisfaction of overcoming a chaotic obstacle and situation. And so that's why in a past paradigm, I would always try and force something to happen, right? My lesson has always been let go, surrender, rest. Let go, surrender. You can't control this, right? But I would always try and control it because I was so addicted to to being the one that always overcame the obstacle and saving the day, which of course, was a lot of us codependent people out there in the world, right? And you may have heard me say this before, but I feel like the main addiction that's running through the entire human frequency civilization is codependency. And that is driving so many of our choices and everything, right? So here we are, and today I'm feeling good. I've got a little bit of spending money in my pocket. I was thinking of going to the dollar store and grabbing a couple things. You know, the dollar store can feel luxurious as fuck. It's your perspective and the frequency that you put into it, right? And as we're growing financially, you know, we have debt that we're paying to people who have helped us throughout this time when we were on the verge of being evicted. And over this last year, we had a few times that we were on the verge of being evicted, notices sent and everything. And so there was a lot of chaos that was happening, and every time we would overcome it, there would be that satisfaction, but then that fear and worry would happen again, and it was like putting ourselves back into that. And so I used to try and control that aspect. And so what I've learned over this last year is really, and like 5 paradigms ago, it's really taken each different paradigm shift that we have like leapt into, right? We've leapt into this new frequency field, this new paradigm. And each time there's been a deeper, wider opportunity of healing and learning how to let go and lean in, right? And that works however it is. Look, I don't care. I'm not one to judge or say you can't have an alignment. If you're Christian, you choose to go by that. That's great. You're Jewish. You're fucking Hindu, Islam, spiritual, witch. I mean, whatever you choose that feels aligned with you. We're not all to be the same, right? That's why we're here. It's the contrast of all of us when we get together and create. That is what we're here to do. It's the contrast of all of us that we can connect with and then create through. Oh, I love that. Contrast, connection, creation. That felt really good. That was sexy. I like that. So anyways, so now that we're aware, right? We're aware now, holy shit, I'm feeling good. I don't have to create chaos. Chaos doesn't have to be a part of my life. I can disconnect the pleasure from the chaos and redirect it into the calm. And calm can mean fun. It can mean going out, exciting. It can mean staying in. It can mean having the ability to do whatever it is that you want and choosing the alignment of ultimately what feels good for you. And ultimately what feels good for you, and that's in alignment with your higher self, is ultimately what's good for the collective. 3232. So ask yourself, where have you created chaos in your life when things have been going well because you're addicted to the dopamine kick and the satisfaction of the overcoming? And how can you shift that energy now that you're aware of that? How can you shift that from creating chaos to creating challenges that serve the humanity and challenge the current status quo to allow rising and healing, right? So me as a sapphire, right? I don't know if y'all take the gem test, personality test, but there's ruby, sapphire, emerald, and pearls. And I'm a sapphire. Sapphire is all about fun. So things need to be fun for me. So I create games and challenges out of everything. So instead of creating chaos, 3333, I just looked at my software. Instead of creating chaos, how can I create a game that can ultimately serve the desires of my purpose and the collective rising of humanity? And when we can start to do that, it's not like we're going to be like coming up with this. It may not be this massive idea. It could be, but it may not be. It could be this small inkling of this idea that you thought you had, like you had this inkling, this intuitive hit. And instead of bypassing that and letting that, as Elizabeth Gilbert would say in her big Magick book, float into the idea frequency field and somebody else picks up, instead of that happening, you decided to say, fuck the judgment of others. Instead of that, I'm going to do this, right? And I'm going to create this. Instead of creating chaos, how can you create magic? Right? So I really had to get on here and record this. I've been having struggles of the inspiring hit. You know, I'm also a generator. And a generator means that I respond with my sacral. Duh. Hello. All about the sacral. But it's all about responding. And if I try and just go and do without actually responding to an intuitive hit, then I'm just creating chaos. And so understanding that, learning that, and then taking conscious, actionable steps in supporting the frequencies that are naturally me, then I no longer am creating chaos when times are going well. I'm able to lean into the times going well, trust that times are going well, realize that life continuously happens, but I'm able to create the ability to challenge myself to continue rising instead of creating chaos to stay addicted to the cyclic behaviors of survival mode. And that, by you doing that, you leaning in and tapping into that, not only are you completely changing the world and the way it responds in your own personal world and universe and dimensional world and frequency, but that ripples out to the collective and gives permission to others, right? That's why people say, like, if you're just a natural agitator. A natural agitator is somebody who is just confident in being and standing in the truth of their frequency, no matter what anybody else says. Yes, we may feel some emotion if there's judgment. We may feel nervousness. We may feel that fear. But ultimately, we know that we feel good when we're aligned. And that when we stand in the truth of who we truly are. And when we do that, ultimately, we start to see those in the same frequency field of standing in who they are. And that's how we connect with those who are in our field. So I hope this episode brought some sort of clarity and just kind of shared with you, just my life. If, wondering if you resonate with it. I mean, I know I'm not the only one who's ever had work problems and financial problems. And over this last couple of weeks, I have had the most amazing gift of Goddess bringing people into my life who fully support the being of who I am and help continue the progression of truth and love and support and connection. I'm kind of getting lost in my thoughts right now. So this is a great time to end this episode. So thank you so much for sharing your time and energy with me. make sure if you're not following me on Instagram, head on over to @therisinggoddess_. That's @therisinggoddess_. Also head on over to the Rising Goddess group on Facebook. That is a pop-in group that is for women only. I am slowly growing. It's been a while. It's just trying to figure out a good flow for me. But I also have a group, which is the Rising Goddess group for Rising Humans, which is for all gender, sexual orientations, whatever you align with. So definitely head on over there and follow me over on the Rising Goddess. It's Michelle Torrance / the Rising Goddess on Facebook. I think it's facebook.com @Rising Goddess Radio. So definitely head on over there. I do have a Patreon, so head on over to Patreon at the Rising Goddess Radio over there, or the Rising Goddess, and yeah, just come connect with me. I am offering some one-on-one private work, but it is going to be minimized. I am limiting my work, one-on-one work, to 5 clients a month. And this is going to be intense work through Voxer, and it's going to be a little bit longer options and a little bit more investment, because the work that we are doing is some serious, deep, wounded healing, and you're worthy of that healing. So all right, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna work out, and I will talk to y'all later. So thanks so much, and I will catch y'all on the next episode. Later.